Collins & Co.'s not-for-profit conference, Be Empowered Through Knowledge, is designed specifically for the not-for-profit sector. Our speakers are experts in this sector, and their practical approach provides not-for-profit board members and management with the opportunity to improve their skills and knowledge across a range of specialist topics. The conference also provides a great networking opportunity.
Please welcome Ostii.
Thank you. All right. So, stand up if you have ever created or been involved in creating a website for yourself, your organisation. Now, stay standing up if you found that process easy, fun, felt it was highly successful, and you'd love to do it again as often as possible. So if you are one of those people standing up, you can probably leave. Yeah, this probably isn't the workshop for you. So welcome to the 4 steps to website success. I think I've gone too soon there. Pretty much every business owner I speak to has a website nightmare story. Every business owner, every CEO, every not-for-profit marketing manager. Yeah, they've either had a fight with their developers, they've spent way too much money, they've built the wrong thing. And now I'm a bit lost. All right. I'm here to help that not happen. Yeah, my mission is to help people understand this process in creating a website so that they can get through the nightmare stories. So I think I just gave away the answer to who knows what this date's famous for. The first website? Yeah. Who's ever seen it? Who knows what it looks like? There it is there. Yeah. And the key thing that makes the web difference that I think we often don't realise, what makes it different to every other media, is the hyperlink. That's just a little aside. Before I get into the 4 steps themselves, I'm just going to give you a little bit of trivia and then a little bit of foundation work to why this has come about. And so who can tell me how many websites do you think there are in the world? Yeah. They reckon at the moment there's about 1.94 billion websites. How many do you reckon are created every day?
Millions.
So about 14,000 new ones each day. And the percentage of websites that get no traffic from organic search? 91. Wow. There we go. Yeah. And I say these stats just so you realise when you're creating a website, this is what's going on. There's a proliferation of this thing called a website that's happening out there. The other reason I brought up the Tim Berners-Lee point and that first website, which is 1991, which is, who knows how many years that was, 29 years ago, 30 years. It's an incredibly young industry we're in. Yeah, it's in its infancy, and we're still working out. Nobody really knows how we do this. There's lots of different opinions and people are learning how to do it, but particularly when you're on a lower budget, people still haven't worked out how they do it successfully on a low budget. So 5 hard truths about websites and website creation. The first one being that web design has a problem. And the problem web design has is we have this term called a web designer, or person called a web designer, and usually to create a good website requires a lot of other skills that many web designers don't have. The other problem web design has is that you can create a single website and then go out and market yourself as a web designer and start earning an income the next day. And in fact, you don't even have to have created a website, you can just start doing that because you saw your friend creating one and thought that's what you might do next. So it's an incredibly easy industry to get into. And for that reason, people end up wasting a lot of money working with people who don't really know what they're doing. Another truth is you may not need a website. I know a lot of very successful entrepreneurs who don't have websites. They run a lot of things just from Facebook pages, Facebook groups, and through being very good at sales and very good at events like this where they're able to sign people up to programs and things like that. Worthwhile websites take time and money. I don't think I need to say any more. Your website will never be finished. Yeah? Most website projects fail. Who'd like to take a guess at why web projects fail?
Set and forget.
Set and forget? Yep.
No one's good at update at the moment.
Nobody to update? Yep. Oops, I've gone on there. Difficult to navigate? Yep. And what about in terms of why websites don't actually get to that launch point? Any ideas?
Content, providing content between the person
We'll never
who wants
do
it
it.
and the person who's creating it.
Yeah, content block is one of the really big ones. I'm going to go through what I've, in 25 years of building a website, confusion about purpose. Yeah, people say, we want to create this thing called a website. They actually don't know why they're creating this thing called a website. It's just like, well, that's what we do, isn't it? Let's just create a website. No clear project scope. So they haven't actually worked out, you know, how much are they willing to spend, what do they need it to do exactly, how they're going to make that happen. Wrong team selection. So as I said earlier, they've either chosen someone who doesn't know what they're doing, or they've gone to an agency who does know what they're doing, but they're paying way too much for it. No project management systems, so emails going backwards and forwards with lots of instructions, cross-threaded with different headings, and particularly on larger web projects, that's where everything gets lost and messed up. And the biggest one, really, I think, is content block. This is what I've seen create the biggest delays. So the longest delay I've seen 6 years. I managed to push someone across the line recently, and that was only because we just filled in, we took over, we were about their 11th developer in 6 years. Yeah, the 11th person they'd worked with, and I actually just forced them live with content I'd put in there, and then they had to scramble to actually work out what they wanted to put in there. But they were never going to, and then that's the same reason they weren't live was perfectionism. So they'd been through, you know, a number of copywriters and a number of versions of copy, but they still weren't happy. So the 4 steps to website success, what are they? They are define, draft, craft, and launch. Oh, this says share. So we've talked for a long time as to whether or not it should be launch or share. So you'll see most of this slide shows launch, and I missed updating that slide there to share. A lot of discussion around which it should actually be in terms of, you know, the way you present this. The idea with this is that it's a continual process. Yeah? And at this point here in defining, if you're building a new website next week, what you're defining is not every single thing you ever want to have in that website, but you're defining your minimum lovable website that you can get live as soon as possible to make the maximum impact for your business, circling through that process, and then you come back and start again. And in some cases, in one project I worked on recently, that was a single page website that just showed the next upcoming events that this person was holding. Yeah. Now they'd gone out and they'd got quotes from a whole lot of people ranging from $1,000 to $15,000 to build these websites with, you know, 10, 15, 20, 30 pages covering all these elements of their business and things, but that's not what they needed as the very first thing to get them started. Most people who build a website start here. Yeah, and the equivalent, if you were building a house, is to head down to Bunnings or the local hardware store, start buying some timber, some screws, and come home and start putting it together and hoping that that works out to be the house that you need. So I'm going to step through a little bit about the define process. The first thing you need to define is the problem. The most common mistake I see people make is trying to solve their business problems with a new website. So you need to define what is the problem you're trying to solve by creating this website. Now, I've had people who've come to me, and once we defined the problem, or their first problem was that they actually didn't have any traffic to their current website, and they were about to build a new one. That's the most common mistake I see. Yeah, people go, our website's not working, we need a new one. What we did with them is we made some minor tweaks to their site which displayed their events much better than they were currently displayed, and then we put the budget they were going to put into a new website into Facebook ads, and they had huge traffic within no time and their events were full. So without defining the problem, you don't know what it is you need to create. Then, of course, you define the solution to that. And sometimes the solution is a new website. Yeah, it is a new website as part of doing what you need to do in your business. Most of the time I talk people out of new websites, but especially for a period, at least for a period of time while we do some analytics to see what's actually going on the website currently. Why are they not getting any new leads? Why are they not getting any business? Really important to define your investment. And I like to turn the model on its head a little bit, and rather than the websites seem to have evolved through some process over the last 30 years where it's a case of how cheaply can I get this done, and can I get my brother's, dog walkers, hairdressers, nephew's schoolmate to do it for a box of chocolates. Yeah, and it's this how cheaply can we get out of it, rather than, well, actually we're prepared in order to get the people coming to the website and the interaction we need. We're prepared to spend $5,000 this year and this many hours of our own time, or this many hours of development time, or whatever that is, whatever that equation is. And all of this stuff I'm talking about, it's relevant whether you're doing this yourself and you're sitting there using WordPress or Squarespace or whatever that is. It's just as relevant whether you're doing it or whether you are hiring an agency or freelancers to do it. So part of the investment here is in getting clear, okay, so let's say you are hiring an agency or freelancers, you've got a financial investment there, but you've also got a time investment in that content we talked about earlier, that content block. Your freelancer or agency generally can't make that up without your involvement. So there's a whole lot of things where you need to be involved intimately in the website creation process. Really important to define your team. If anyone wants to get in touch afterwards, we've got a couple of exercises, one being a skills and team audit, which helps you decide when you're building your next website, how much of it you can do yourself and who are the other people you need in your team. Yeah? And that could be, you might need project management help, you might need copywriting help. And in fact, probably, one of the main areas that we find, if you're only going to invest, if you're doing most of it yourself and you're only going to invest in one resource to help, I generally recommend that's a copywriter. Yeah? Someone who can help you take all these words you've got and condense it down to something that's going to connect with people who are coming to your website and get them to take action. All right, so the next thing, after you've defined that, and that's what I call sort of the foundation basics. Yeah. Once you've got that defined, you need to look at who are your ideal clients. And I'm not sure in not-for-profits, do you call them clients? Yeah. Who are these people you need to appeal to? And getting really clear on who they are. We run through quite a few exercises with people where, with our clients, where we get them to imagine themselves as that person. It's a bit of a meditation process where we get them to close their eyes and deeply feel into their arriving as that person. How's that person feeling emotionally in relation to the problem you're going to solve for them when they get to your website? And then how does seeing your website make them feel? Do they feel elated? Do they feel seen, heard, like their problem's been solved? Really important to understand, how are these people going to come to be at your website? Because if they got there from Google search, that could be a very different website you need to build than if they've got there from your sales team being out there seeing them, or from you're constantly networking at events like this, and people are always, the only reason, or the main reason people come to your website is through networking at events like this. That will be a different website to if you're doing paid ads on Google or organic search, or even people coming via Facebook and other social media. So you need to be clear on how they're going to get there. And part of getting clear on that is that if you dive in to build this website, particularly if you've got some idea that it's going to change the way your organisation is working in the world, and suddenly you're going to have this influx of thousands of people who here, by the way, has built a website or been involved in a project where it was just assumed that the moment it went live, you'd be bombarded with new inquiries. And, so it's a pretty common one. So part of or defining visitor pathways is getting clear on that before you build the website, that, oh, this is how we're going to get people to this website and make it work for us. Then really clear to understand, what do you want them to do when they get there? Yeah. And if that's not clear, they'll leave. Yeah. And if there's too many choices, they'll leave. Final things, oops, I go back one. Can I go back? Yep. Getting clear on your brand is a really important part. A lot of people think, well, we can do the website and then we'll work out our brand. And I'm not going to go into a lot of details around brand, but brand is more than a logo, much more than that. And you'll see here, it's what your employees say, what you say, what your customers say. It's your logo, past experience, products and services. I go as far as to say it's the fonts you use, it's the colours you use, it's the spacing between the fonts, it's the images you use and how they all look and feel and come together on your website. You then need to define, what does website success look like for you? And there's two levels to that. One is website success is, well, we've got our minimum lovable website is launched by 15th of this month, yeah, whatever month that is. That's one level. The other level, though, is things like, well, we've got 10,000 visitors a month by January 2021. Or, you know, and you might work down from there. You might actually have a set of business goals, which is, well, we're actually getting 20 inquiries a month by this date. So therefore, how many people do we need getting to the inquiry page? Therefore, how many visitors do we need getting to the website? So really important to get clear before you start on what does success look like? Why are you building this thing? What do you want the outcome to be? And the final one is project management. How are you going to manage it all? We use Trello for most of the projects we work on. It just allows you to drag tasks through stages. I think this one is from the book, the website for the Retro Suburbia book. Anyone aware of Retro Suburbia? The Downshifter's Guide to a Resilient Future. Great book, well worth getting. So this is, we did the website there, and this is the board as things progress along the path from an idea to completion. Even the smallest website projects can benefit greatly from some sort of project management tracking system like this. So step 2 in the process, why draft? Or draft, so why draft? Any ideas why we draft? Or even what it is? Yeah. So it's the same as you wouldn't build a house without drawing up the plans, and this really is the drawing up of the plans, and drawing up of what you need to do. So important thing in drafting is that you're thinking about content first. Yeah, and this is becoming more common, but I still see it where somebody goes out, they hire a developer. I'm going to use that term loosely because we've got these sort of interwoven terms that sort of mean nothing and everything. It's sort of like calling you an electrician a plumber and your plumber an electrician in a way. They go and hire a developer who delivers them back this thing called a website, and they sit there and look at it and say, oh, okay, what do we do now? And then they're trying to shoehorn content into this thing that was the developer's idea of what they needed without actually knowing what the content is. And in that first round of content, you can use your lorem ipsum text, yeah, just as a bit of a placeholder. I'll go into that in a little more detail, but as you refine it more, you actually want to be going to, before you even do any of the build of your site, you want to be pretty clear on what's the copy, what's the writing, what's the words, what are the images, what are the videos that are going to go in the various parts of your website so that you can be designing them around that. So choose your drafting tools. So the concept of drafting is that before you sit down, and now whether you're doing it yourself or whether you're getting an agency or someone to do it, that before you sit down facing the computer and start using WordPress or Squarespace or whatever program it is that's going to be used, that you've got an idea. Now you can use, there's a whole lot of tools available for creating mock-ups of your website and drafting what it looks like. The best one I've found for most people is pencil and paper. One of the things to get really clear on before you start drafting is your audience predominantly mobile viewers, or is it predominantly desktop? And so in our case with Floji, we've got about a 75% desktop, 25% mobile skew. Your average cinema around town is going to be at about 80-20 mobile to desktop. Yeah. So generally fast-moving consumer goods are much more mobile. Business to business, where people need to be able to sort of take in more information and think about it, and it's often done from their office, is going to be a lot more desktop. Whichever one you use, you want to be drawing your pages. And I think I've got that, it's a little bit further down. So after you get your drafting tools sorted, you want to be drawing your sitemap and working out what are the pages you need on your website. And I always advise first round as little as possible. If you can get away with one page, and I'll give the example, a friend of mine, she's a counsellor and she's just about to start out. And she said, oh, I've been just thinking about my website for months. I'm so stuck, you know, like I don't have much budget to put towards it, and I've got a few quotes and it's going to cost me a fortune. And I said, here's what you do. Start drawing and just draw 3 panels. Yeah? And she's made a video, which is great. The first panel has the video and a line of hero copy, and then a subline there, and some more copy under that. It just gives an overview of what you do. In the second panel, put a testimonial, nice and large so people can read it. And in the third panel, put your get in touch form and launch that. Yeah, like that's the starting point. Yeah, it's as quick as you can get launched and start getting feedback and interaction. By panel, by the way, I mean, think of a panel almost like if you're giving a slideshow. It's the next break in the screen where someone knows, oh, I'm in a different section now on this page. Yeah? My mind can switch off and on again to start taking in a new piece of information. The hardest websites to navigate are the ones where there's no break for your eye on the page as you scroll down it that lets you know, oh, this is a new topic. Yeah? This is a new slide, effectively. Once you've created your sitemap, draw your pages. Like literally sit down, and one of the exercises we do is we will sticky tape 4 or 5 A4 pages together. And because your website isn't just this static thing that sits in one square like that, it's generally a scrolling thing. So if we're doing that on mobile, we'll draw a long thin strip, or we've got a printout that I can send through to anyone who wants it. And you literally draw like what's going to be in that first section. And once again, you're closing your eyes and you're imagining that ideal client arriving, and you're saying, what do they need to see in as few words as possible? Yeah, that's as emotionally compelling as possible. That's going to make them want to scroll and see more. Yeah. And then draw a line, and that's the end of that slide or section. Yeah. And then look at the next section and say, right, this person, they were interested enough after my first section to move on and scroll down. I'm going to use the phone action. Scroll down, or they've scrolled down on the desktop. What do you want to give them next? What do you need or want to share with them so they go, oh, yeah, okay, I'm feeling this. I'm feeling that these people can help me with the problem I'm trying to solve. Once you've drawn your pages, you can move on to identifying your content. Now, by content, I mean copy, I mean images, illustrations, icons, drawings, video, and so on. Yeah? So you might, in that top banner, have said, well, you need a great line of hero copy and then some sub-copy under that, subheading, and a button call to action, and in the background, you're going to have a video behind that, or you're going to have a picture of some people who are benefiting from whatever it is you're offering. You need to identify that so that you can start gathering it, so that you can start working out, okay, well, can I write this copy myself, or do I need to get someone in to help me? Do we have images already that we can start using, or do we have to get someone in to take photos for us, and someone in to make videos? And part of that then is the gathering of that content. And once you've gathered, well, it's really sort of the get feedback probably actually belongs up here, doesn't it? After draw your pages, you're getting some feedback from your team, from people around saying, hey, you know, this is the journey I'm thinking of taking someone on when they arrive at my website. What do you think? You know, are you inspired? You know, when you first see the screen, this is what we're going to tell you. This is how these are the feelings we're going to invoke in you. And yeah. So yeah, as it says, could be awesome or less awesome. And finally we get to craft. And the reason I say finally is because this is where everyone wants to get to. So I'll often have people who come to me, and we don't actually build websites, or we try not to. We do these strategy sessions with people, and I get a lot of people who I explain the process, and they go, oh, actually, we just need to get the website built, and then we'll give you a call. Yeah? Probably 1 in 3 or 4 people I speak to goes, look, we'll build it, and then we'll get in touch. Yeah, which is essentially like building your house, then calling the architect for some consulting time. So craft, I'm not going to go through a lot of details, because one of the things with craft is it's really dependent on what tools you're using, whether you're doing it yourself or whether you're getting an agency or freelancers to do it. And so the interesting thing about this process, when I share it like I am today, it's very, very weighted to the first 2 points and the last one, but not a lot goes on here, partly because this is the known factor. And you can see that if you were to go after today online and search for how to create a website, or go to a bookshop tomorrow, you're going to see thousands of books on HTML, CSS, JavaScript, how to create a WordPress page, how to create a Squarespace page, all of that sort of stuff. And that's the craft part. Yeah? So there's plenty of information out there on how to do that, particularly if you're wanting to do it yourself. Obviously, there's the elements of how do you manage an agency or freelancers through this process that also need to be addressed. So in craft, you've got choose your tech, and it's amazing the number of people who come to me and their first question is, what platform should I use? And I say, well, nobody knows what platform to use until they've been through define and draft, because that's going to inform what platform to use. And for my friend I was talking about before, the counsellor, yeah, she said, everyone says I should use WordPress for SEO. I say, forget WordPress SEO. It's like they've all caught up in SEO land. So anyone who tells you WordPress is the better SEO platform, it's old news. Go with the simplest platform you find easiest to use to get your minimum level website live and start making the impact you need to make, especially if you're trying to do it yourself. Depending on what platform you use, you'll need to choose a web host. Really important factor, so many people skimp on it. Choose a good host that's lightning fast. Google doesn't penalize slow pages on the web, but they do reward fast loading pages. So if we've got competing websites, someone does a search and yours comes up higher than mine, but people click through and it takes forever, but they click through on mine and it's super quick, I'll soon potentially be above. Register domain name, so I won't go much into detail on that. So design matters. I'm not going to cover a lot here, but there's, particularly if you're doing this yourself, but even if you're working with someone who's delivering you a site, it's really important that you understand some of the basic principles of design. And one of the truths for all businesses and enterprise now is we're all in the tech and we're all in the design industry to an extent now. And so the more you can understand about design, the better. I don't know if anyone knows Confest and the Down to Earth website. I've assumed it's had a gatekeeper since the 90s, someone who learned a bit of web development in the 90s, and he won't let anyone, or she, I'm assuming it's a he, probably is. What's that?
He's colourblind.
He's colourblind. He's used, I think, over 20 different fonts. These things actually flash on and off, and it's amazing. And so it's somebody's, you know, they learnt this in the 90s, and they love it. And they can't see the difference between that and a really clean, crisp site. I'm going to go a little bit more into design matters. Managing images is really important, especially if you're doing it yourself, especially if you want a fast loading website. Yeah, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about that now, but if you want a link to a video on how to resize images for web, get in touch and I can send you that. Yep, I've worked with people who have uploaded the image, the 1 megabyte, or actually sometimes 5 megabyte images straight from their camera. Yeah? You want your entire website, if possible, to be less than entire page, any one page, to be less than 1 megabyte. So if you've got 5 images on there and they're 3 or 5 megabytes each, you've got a huge amount for that page to load each time. And optimize it for search. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail around SEO. On-page SEO has less value than it ever has. High quality links are the main thing that's going to affect your SEO, but there's certain things you can do to ensure you get the most you can out of the on-page SEO elements, things like the title. So well worth reading up on on-page SEO and just understanding the basics of that. So a couple of quick things in design matters. I think I'm running a bit behind time, so I'm just going to throw these out really quickly. We've got consistency, alignment, white space, proximity, and contrast. And I'm just going to, for a bit of fun here, let me exit out of here. Now, let's see if I can get the browser up there. We got Chrome. Oops, you weren't supposed to see that one. Hold on. How can I go to the first one? Okay. I've gone here with the sort of the worst of the worst, but just to give you that sense of what happens when there's no consistency, there's no white space. You don't really know what to do. I'll try and show you a couple of others. At least this one's got a little bit of consistency, and this one here gets a bit more consistent. But I'm going to show you our site just at the end, just to give you this idea I'm talking about, where you'll see as I scroll down here, this idea of blocking content. And we treat each of these like a slide. Yeah, you now know you're in the next section. There's Meg. Yep. Oh, sorry about that. There you go. It's actually good to see these again. Really important. If you're checking out a freelancer, there are actually 5 of the really important things to check out in their work. Yeah. What you'll get often with freelancers, you get a developer who's got no design sense, or you get a designer who's got no development understanding. Very quickly, back up your work, get feedback, and make sure your site's secure. Last thing is launch, and I'm probably, because of time here, we're probably doing what a lot of people do with the launch of their website. They're too busy doing other things and they don't do anything about it. As part of identifying your channels in the define part, like how are people going to come to be at your website, you want to have documented some sort of launch plan, and this is when you put it in action. So a launch, what is a launch? So a launch can be as little as just letting a few people know, or it could be putting together a major advertising campaign that drives a lot of traffic at once. We've learned that you're much better off with a launch, and this is balancing it sort of with a minimum lovable launch as well, in pushing as much stuff together into as tight a space as possible. So rather than trickling out a few ads rather than trickling stuff out over a few weeks, build it up to a point where actually you've got a lot of stuff going out over a very short space of time, and getting as many people you know to share and get engaged, as well as doing ads. And if you only do one type of paid ad, do remarketing ads. Who knows what remarketing ads are? Yep. So they're just to the people who've already come to your website. Yeah. So they've come to your website, and then on Facebook and Google ads and Twitter or LinkedIn, wherever you want to do it, they're then seeing ads to take them back to your website. So we said review your traction channels. Once again, get feedback, finalize your website, to rush a bit through here. So the things to finalise is obviously make it fast, make it secure, review your on-page SEO, and install tracking codes. And this is one of the most important ones. If you're not tracking what's happening on your website, then don't build a new one. Just don't do it. Yeah, like if you don't know how long are people staying, how many people are actually staying, and actually the other thing I recommend is get rid of ever looking at the visitors stat. Yeah? You only want to look at the visitors who stayed longer than 30 seconds and the visitors who went to 2 pages or more. Because the other is just people coming in one end and out the other. But really important to install tracking codes and to get meaningful reports set up that can give you this data. So I speak to people all the time who say, oh, we've got analytics on our website. And I'll say, okay. And I usually ask them 3 or 4 questions about, okay, how many visitors do you get each week? How many visitors who are staying 30 seconds or 1 minute or whatever that time frame is, you've decided how many are staying that long. And most people don't know any of that stuff. Promote your website, promote your website, promote your website. The old Donald got a showing in there. Review your analytics. Tend to your website like a garden. Yeah? It's something that needs love and care, needs updating. And then you circle back and do the whole thing again. Yes?
I just have a quick question around navigation panels on desktop versus mobile.
Yep.
Should they correlate? Like, should they be the same thing, or should it be a more contracted version on mobile and other kind of smaller screen devices?
A really good question. It depends, once again, on your clientele. So I'll give you the example of my business, and we work with an accounting firm and a few other businesses that are mostly B2B. We don't worry about really optimizing anything on the mobile. Yeah, we just go, you know what, it's 20 to 25% of people. We could spend a whole lot of time making it easier for them to engage, but they're actually not the people we mostly want. We want the people who are sitting at their desk, they're thinking about this thing, they're engaged in a different way to someone who's on a tram looking at this in their mobile phone. But if you've got a business or an organisation where there's going to be a lot of people on a mobile and you want to make that easy for them, then yeah, it could be a case where your mobile version, and this is where where you might choose a technology like WordPress over Squarespace, because with Elementor Builder in WordPress, you can say, actually, we want this as the mobile version of that panel, and we want this as the desktop version of that panel, and the desktop has a whole lot more information, and the mobile is much simpler. So yeah, the other way you can go about that in something like Squarespace is you can use CSS or code to hide various content on your mobile version, so you're just getting bare bones. If that was the case, you want to do what's known as mobile first design, so you actually want to be thinking about the mobile version first and then you extend it out for the desktop, because it's always easier to go that way than it is to go back the other way. Yeah.
You mentioned on the first page, maybe of a one-page site, you gave prominence to the testimonial.
Yep.
I suggest that the copywriter should write the testimonial, because if you have a testimonial written by some odd person, they may well go off on some side thing that's not really relevant. Get the copywriter to write the testimonial, make sure it's relevant for what you want to highlight, and then invariably the person's happy to sign it.
Yeah, it's a really, really good point. And in fact, our testimonials there are generally an amalgamation of a few things one person said, or even a few things that 2 people have said, and then we'll go back and say, hey, we've just changed your words slightly, and they'll usually just go, yeah, that's fine. But yeah, it's a really good point. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
If you're at a point where you've got your sitemap ready, how you want your website to look, how then do you best choose what to use? Is that when you get someone in, or can you work it out yourself?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I didn't touch much in here on scope. And by scope, I mean when you've because you might sit down and you've worked out, well, this is the big thing we want to build, and you might then break it into chunks where you say, well, actually, our minimum level website that we want to launch in 2 months' time, 3 months' time is this much of it. So part of it's prioritising of all of that you've got there. Can you actually do it in phases and get them launched as soon as possible and start getting feedback? The other good thing about breaking it into chunks, especially if you're working with a new agency or someone you haven't worked with before, is it allows you to work out, without paying $5, $10, $15, $20,000 or committing that to someone, it actually allows you to work out, are they good people to work with? Are they going to be able to deliver what you need to deliver? And so on. So, yeah, and you can either do it yourself, you can go to a few agencies and see how they do it. You can engage someone similar to me who just helps you work out what can be compartmentalised into project sections and bite-sized chunks. Yeah. Are we out of time? How long have we got?
We were talking earlier about tracking clicks and whatnot, and you mentioned a tool. Can you what was that?
Yeah, so I'm in two minds about tracking, partly because the best tracking tool or the embedded tracking tool is Google Analytics. At the same time, when I recommend Google Analytics, I'm giving big data more data. Yeah, we all are. But it still is the easiest and best one. So there's a couple of steps to this. One is actually just getting the analytics code on your site and starting to track that. I use Google Data Studio mostly to pull that data out of Google Analytics. And as I mentioned, I've got a standard report that I do, which is, there's a whole lot of things in it, but let's say one of the tables is a table that down the left side has organic search, paid traffic, referral traffic, social traffic. So that's the traffic source on that left column. And then I've got about 12 columns going across it, with the first one just being users, second being new users, third being sessions, the fourth is the 1 minute users, the fifth column, and you'll see they all slowly start to get less. Yeah, I've then got the 2 pages, then it goes to how many people reached the contact page, how many people filled out the form, and then some companies I work with also have free downloads and things, and we're tracking how many people downloaded each thing from each channel there. And through that data, so I've had an accounting firm I work with, recently we looked at the data and they spent thousands of dollars on social and Google Ads last year. And through this data, we were actually able to see that of all the people who filled out the contact form, those 2 channels account for less than 1%. Whereas their organic search in their case accounts for about 40, 50%, and referrals account for another 40-odd%. So they're now revising their budget based around that information. Other great tracking tools are Heap Analytics. If you've got a smaller site as well, things like Hotjar and Mouseflow will actually allow you to see what people are doing on your pages, how far they're scrolling, where they're moving their mouse, things like that. Yeah.
Just that link that makes the photos smaller.
Yep, I'll give you, I'm actually going to hand out, I've got the website success checklist. If you want to email me, and I'll send that through to you. Yep. Yeah.
You mentioned at the start that task in process to done, but you mentioned from.
So that wasn't, the book is Retro Suburbia by David Holmgren. Yep. The program there for tracking your projects, the easiest one is Trello. It's free, simple to use. Another great book is Gabriel Weinberg's Traction, the 19 channels you can use to get traction for your startup. It is, but it's useful information for anyone wanting to get traction. There's another book called Traction, so make sure you get the Gabriel Weinberg one. I think we've got time. One more question, or are we done?
Just one thing around the homepage. How long should the homepage be in terms of scrolling and stuff like that? Is there usually like a general kind of rule?
Not really.
3 sections.
So 3 sections is a minimum lovable website just for this friend of mine who was struggling with, well, what do I put on my website? And I'm saying, well, don't get caught up with having to create all of that now. Just work out what do you need so that when you meet people and need to send them to book, you've got something there. So as you saw on Floaty's homepage, I think we've got about 8 sections there. On some homepages I work on, sometimes we've got a number of call to action strips, so there might be 10 or 12 sections. It really depends what you want to have on there. Yeah, so on ours we've got 2 testimonials, a video in the middle there, and then 2 calls to action to download our website success checklist. And that's, actually I didn't cover in there in the calls to action, so our primary call to action for our website isn't that someone gets in touch with us, it's that they download our website success checklist, which shows they're interested, and we start to build a relationship with them through email. So part of your calls to action is actually identifying what's the primary thing you want people to do, and then working through what are the secondary and tertiary things you want people to do on a page. Thank you all.